Hello, good evening, viewers. It's Tuesday, 8 o'clock, and it's time for the Tonight Show with Afzal Akram, your host here tonight. I hope you had a fantastic week since our last show, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the election. Yes, we're in the middle of election, so we're going to talk a little bit about politics, and after that I'll be introducing my two guests with us today who are from Rotary International, and we'll talk a little bit about giving, a little bit about charity, a little bit about peace, and a whole heap of other things with our guests as well. But first of all, as I said, we're in the I was going to say the middle of an election, but I suppose we've been in an election campaign for a long time. But the general election has been called. So on December the 12th, we will, for the third time in 4 years, go to the polls to elect a new government. And I can only stress how important it is to get yourself registered onto the voting roll with your local authorities in order to be able to cast your vote. That is the power we, the people, have. The vote. We choose who we want to have representatives to be and then send them with a mandate, hopefully to Parliament, where they will then carry out the policies. So December the 12th is the magical date. From top of my head, you have until around the last week of November to get yourself registered with your local authority. If you Google how to register, your local links will come up. And please do get yourself registered and do cast your vote as well. For too long, you know, we complain, whether it's an Asian community or whether it's people as general. We complain all the time about this is wrong and that is wrong and that is wrong. And I know because I used to be a councillor myself and I used to have lots of people coming to me complaining about X, Y, Z. And when I used to say, well, you voted for that person. And they said, no, we didn't vote. And I'm saying, well, you know what? That's even worse, okay? Because if you haven't voted, then in my eyes, you actually lose a little bit of a right to complain because you're not using your vote. If you vote, if you think your elected representative, whether it's a councillor, it's a member of parliament, are not doing what you elected them to do, then when the next election comes, you should use your vote and vote for somebody else who believe will actually deliver what you want to do. You know, hold them to account, hold your elected representatives to account. And if you hold them to account, then hopefully they will be obliged to do a better job than they are doing already. You know, we're in those murky times at the moment where the old traditional politics of the left, you know, Labour known for having the left and the Conservatives known for being on the right, if you like, and the Lib Dems somewhere in the middle alongside the Greens for environmental policies. You know, it was quite easy a number of years ago, you know, you mentioned something and somebody would say, oh, that's a Labour policy, that's a Conservative policy, oh, that's the Greens, yeah, yeah, that's the Lib Dems for you, yeah. It was very easy to tell, it was very easy to distinguish between the policies. But since 2016 and Brexit, it seems to be you're either a Remainer or you're a Leaver. The old left and right seem to have disappeared to a certain extent, and our country is divided. You know, we voted in the referendum in 2016 that we, as a country, wanted to leave. Yes, there were areas like Scotland, Northern Ireland, and other places who did not vote. But you know, we are United Kingdom. We are made of England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. That's what makes us united. And together as a country, we voted to leave the European Union. Now that doesn't mean that we're just going to disappear somewhere. What that actually means is that we're just leaving the institutions which are known as the EU, okay? Our neighbours are still going to be there. You know, we're still going to be a part of Europe as a way of being neighbourly with them. We still want to trade with them. We still want to go and have a holiday. We still want them to come here and have their holidays here, do business with us and so on. We still want to interact. What we voted for was not to have joint policies, if you like, not to be governed by EU, to be governed ourselves as a United Kingdom, for our High Court, our Supreme Court to have the final say in any decision, for us to be able to make new rules which affect us and our population, taking into account what our needs are and not be railroaded into what might be right for 28 different nations, because that might not be right for us as a nation. So those were some of the reasons why we wanted to leave. And of course, on the opposing view, for people who want to remain in Europe, you know, for them it's been, you know, we're part of a big union. It gives us clout, it gives us might, it's made trading easier, you know, and a whole heap of other issues why they believe that we should remain. And that's the beauty of the democracy in our country, isn't it? That we had the vote, we gave the power to the people, the parliamentarians decided. I remember David Cameron said, we the government will do what you instruct us. And so we're going to have a referendum. Seems an awful long time ago, but that's what it was said, you know, and we all received those fancy booklets through the post from the government telling us, you know, what they would do. It's a once in a lifetime vote, and, you know, whatever you vote, we will put together. And as they say, hindsight's a great thing, because things have not been that easy since then. You know, the government has tried. Theresa May negotiated a deal with Europe to leave. Deal 1 was voted down, then Deal 2 was voted down, and eventually she lost the premiership over that. We had a new premier come in, Boris Johnson, who wanted to actually do a new deal and take us out on 31st of October, but that didn't actually work either. Okay, that didn't work either. So we are in the election now, so please do, you know, go ahead and vote, and use your vote on there. Formally, day 1 of the election period starts tomorrow. So I really wanted to cover that at the beginning, because it's very important, and as a community, we don't use our votes. But let's come back to where we are today and who our guests are. I'm going to introduce them shortly, and I will ask them to say a little bit more about themselves and the background. We have first with us Ayaz. Ayaz, welcome. And we also have Tony, both from the Rotary International Charity. Ayaz, tell us a little bit about yourself.
What it is, in my full-time job, I work for a local authority as a community education officer. And my passion and reason for joining, as you say, Rotary, was to do something to serve for the community. And my passion is peace, and we're here to talk about peace. And I had the privilege of meeting Tony, who's the London governor for Rotary, and we together are the thrust of a project called the Indus Peace Park Project.
Okay, I'll hold that, we'll come back to that. Tony, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born in England, and I come from Slough. And my professional life has been involved in construction. And some 30 years ago, I joined Rotary International. This year, I was elected as the first Asian and coloured governor of London District after almost 115 years. And that gives me the platform to do good in the world. That's what Rotary is about, is doing good in the world. And some 3 years back, I met Mohammed, and it was quite funny because I'm Indian background, he's Pakistani, but guess what, we're both Punjabis. And I'd been to Pakistan on a Rotary mission helping eradicate polio, because polio is only left in Pakistan and Afghanistan. And when I saw the affection, like people appreciate that I, as an Indian, was giving the polio life-saving drops to Pakistani children. They couldn't believe I'm Indian. And that went to the next level, and we're thinking, we're making inroads here with the public, with the people. Why are we still fighting? We need to stop this fighting because it's needless. Now, Rotary has the power to stop this, because the governments have their own political agendas, financial agendas. We just have the people's agenda. And that's what Rotary's about.
You know, sometimes we forget that above religion and above nationalities, human beings, humankind, you know, it is what it's about. We are all humans at the heart of it. Doesn't matter what colour of our skin is, what religion we practice, which country we were born in. But as human beings, we are one. You know, we have that same blood in us. We will all die eventually one day. You know, and there's lots that bind us. And if more people thought of it the way you are, then maybe we would have less wars and conflict than we are currently having. Now, I know Rotary is an international charity, you know, like other charities like the Lions, and there's a whole heap of other charities as well. What actually attracted you to join a existing charity that is worldwide, if you like, rather than what we Asians typically tend to do is start our own up?
Absolutely. Well, the key factor for me was that Rotary clubs are just like you said about the Lions Club and other service sort of organisations, are based around the world, and you want to have that international connection as well. Anywhere we travel in the world, there'll be a Rotary club, and you will be treated like a family member when you go to any Rotary club. It's not an elite club, it's not a secret organisation. It's a chance for you as a local person, whatever occupation or background you have, to contribute locally as well as internationally. And as Tony said before, polio eradication is our great sort of cause. We want to eradicate polio throughout the world. We've only got 2 areas left, Afghanistan and Pakistan.
So in the whole world, there's
Yes.
only 2 areas, 2 countries where there are still polio is the word rife, right, or is it still it's small? It's not.
Yes. Maybe you can
Polio
add to that.
has been, we used to have 350,000 cases a year. Last year we had 11
That's just in Pakistan.
in the world.
In the world,
In
okay.
the world. And those 11 cases are in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Now, Rotary started this program back in 1986. It's a Rotary-led campaign. We have support from many governments, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and many other philanthropists. They give money to Rotary because they know Rotary know how to get rid of polio. We have the infrastructure with the support. So Rotary is known around the world for polio eradication. But it started in 1905 and it's done more projects than you can imagine and even talk about in 10 weeks of your shows. I joined Rotary because I knew one thing, and as you very correctly said, what do? We want to all do good. How do we do it? Well, guess what? We start our own little foundation. You yourself know, and I found out the hard way, on your own, you can do this much, maybe this much, and the more money you have, the more you can do. But I joined Rotary because whatever I do, Rotary can multiply that effect by 3. Okay? So if I had my own £5,000, put that to Rotary, and with their leverage system, that could be £20,000.
And is that leverage money that they raise from private businesses or from governments or what?
That money that I'm talking about comes from Rotary's own foundation.
Okay.
So Rotary has 1.23 million members around the world, all paying a subscription of about $150. That goes towards our foundation and the running costs. There's 35,000 Rotary clubs around the world. Each club is autonomous, so they can do whatever they want. So Mo Hammed is belonging to the Rotary Club of Newham. I belong to the Rotary Club of Tower Hamlets. We have similar rules, but we do whatever we want.
But you work independently.
Yeah.
Okay, hold that thought there. It's time for a break, viewers. We're going to go for a break, and when we come back, we'll find out a little bit more. I'm interested in knowing what is polio actually about, and also how are you going to eradicate it? What are the next steps? And we'll also look at a few other projects. And I'm also keen learning about this peace initiative that these 2 guys have set up. So stay tuned, and we'll see you shortly. Welcome back, Venus viewers. We're on Sky 716, and it's the Tonight Show with Afzal Akram here. And we were talking earlier to our guest, Ayaz and Tony, from the Rotary International Charity, which is a worldwide organisation working on various projects. And Tony, we were mentioning before the break, we were talking about polio. It's one of the major projects you've been working on for a number of years. And you said that the only place in the world at the moment where cases are found are actually in Pakistan and Afghanistan. Can you tell us how many number of cases there are around and why, what is polio first? First of all, tell us, what is polio?
Polio is a virus transmitted through air and water. And what it does is attacks the muscles, particularly of the younger children. They're more vulnerable than older people. So the World Health Organization have come up with a vaccine. So you need to give 2 drops to each child every time.
A drop into the mouth?
Into the mouth.
So it's not even an injection?
No injections,
Okay.
2 drops.
Okay.
And this is wild virus. So if you don't get inoculated and if you don't have the vaccine, then you are open to getting this virus. Now, in August this year, Nigeria was declared polio-free. With Nigeria, that means the whole of Africa is now polio-free. India was declared polio-free about 4 years back. And it's now only left in Pakistan and Afghanistan.
So South America and all these other countries,
Yes.
they're all clear, are they?
That's right.
And you measure it by how many cases are reported to
That's right.
the doctors or hospitals?
That's right.
Okay.
And after the last case is detected, you need to go 3 years without any detections before you're declared polio-free.
right, okay.
So Nigeria was the last cornerstone in Africa. That's done. We now have to concentrate on Pakistan and in India. Sorry, in Afghanistan. So we have the cure. We've eradicated it 99.9% around the world, the last place is Pakistan and Afghanistan.
So, Jans, what are the issues? Why is this problem still prevalent in Pakistan and Afghanistan, not anywhere else?
Well, in Pakistan and Afghanistan, a lot of it's due to lack of education, but also to do with the fact there's lots of conflict zones along between Pakistan and Afghanistan. It's quite porous sort of border. And if you go into the deep into the villages and places of that nature, there's also superstition to do with the drops. Some people think that maybe some sort of, I don't know, drug is going to do our children harm, etc. And our colleagues who are going to these remote villages, unfortunately they're getting killed because people don't understand what is involved, and it's lack of education.
Are you saying the people are killing them, or is the war and the stuff?
Well, I think they're seeing people come in, our workers, health workers going in there, and they're volunteers as well. But when they go in to give the drops, they think it's there's some sort of, I don't know, jadoo or some sort of magic or some sort of brainwashing going on. They really don't understand what it's about. And that's a lack of education and also fear in those conflict zones, because people are fearful of what's going around them. So until that's kind of, gone through and there's more education to do with what the drops are about, and getting the village elders, etc., to allow the health workers to go in there. Unfortunately, lots of our colleagues are, on the receiving end.
And what are you doing about educating those communities?
Well,
how difficult is it?
Well, we've got colleagues in Pakistan who are leading with this sort of awareness of polio. They're using the Pakistani channels there to kind of promote about polio, etc. And just to try and get the message out there. And also the health workers themselves are going out to try and educate first before coming in mass to try and inoculate people and to make sure they get the drops.
So for our viewers' benefit, more than anything else, are you saying that these cases, and are we talking hundreds, thousands?
In the tens.
Oh, so it's in the tens, yeah? Number of cases, right. So is this across the tribal belt which separates Afghanistan and Pakistan?
Absolutely.
It's not the rest of Punjab or Sindh or whatever?
No.
It is across that belt?
It's just across where there's tribal conflict happening, areas which are very remote in the sense of trying to get to as well, because the health workers, some of the journeys they do are perilous journeys, and even that's a big danger. And then when they get there, unfortunately...
And how can people ask for help? So say, I don't know, there's a particular village or a particular tribe, and somebody there suddenly, has got a family member watching Venus TV, they make a phone call and say, guys, this is very good for you, get in touch with somebody and have this vaccination. How do they contact somebody there for this?
Our organisation has one of its biggest head offices for polio in Pakistan. The government supports polio eradication. Aziz Memon is the chairman of polio eradication. All they need to do, anybody needs to do, is contact anybody in the health organisation in Pakistan, and they will be put to the right people.
So any doctor, any hospital, whatever.
Anybody they will know.
Okay. Well, look, viewers, you're hearing it here straight away. If you've got family out there in the tribal areas along the Afghanistan and Pakistan border, and you are in touch with them, you do talk to them, it is about giving some assurance. We get our children vaccinated here all the time. I know my children are all vaccinated, and it's important that we look after the kids of the future. They are like our kids as well, and because of lack of education or lack of understanding, their chances of getting polio are greater than anyone else. And as you heard, Pakistan and Afghanistan are the only places left now. So, if we know anyone, let's do our bit, let's do our bit. I'm going to be looking out for people I know from that area and talking to them and asking them to contact a health professional and ask for their children to be vaccinated. And it's not even painful, guys. It's not an injection in the arm. No, it's just a couple of drops in the mouth, which you'll have to take a few times, I'm guessing, and it's something that will hopefully vaccinate the child. It is more children because they're more immune to getting something like that, and for the future it will help. So let's do our bit as well. So guys, thank you for giving us that information, because certainly it's something new I've learned today, and I'm sure our viewers will have picked up information from there as well. Let's move a little bit more to some of the projects that you do. We talk a lot about charity, whatever, and we always tend to switch back to Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Pakistan and so on, But I've always heard growing up, charity begins out. You know, I certainly was, and I think Tony, you said born here in the UK. We've lived here, we've grown up. This is home for us, if you like. Yes, Pakistan, India are our motherlands, and you know, ancestrally that's where we come from. But this is home. We've chosen to make this home, and there is a need here. What sort of projects are you guys running here in the UK?
Okay, so our organisation is in every major city and even in smaller cities. So there are clubs in every city, and every club is doing work in the community. As you say, very correctly, charity begins at home. So given that there's so many clubs operating in their own areas, the first thing they do is, where do we need to do anything? Now the club chooses what they want to do. And they choose by saying, what, there's 15, 20, 30 members, and someone might say, look, my school really needs this or that. For example, I'm from Tower Hamlets. Local school approached to say, look, we're in an inner city area. These kids don't know what green spaces are. These kids don't know where eggs come from. They know it's from a chicken, but could you give us £1,200 to build a chicken coop? So we went and built a chicken coop, we paid the money. They now know what a chicken, how it lays eggs, how to boil an egg. This is education. So we're supporting things which, regrettably, because of the funding crisis that we have in education, Rotary supports. So whether it's kids or the homeless. So for the homeless, we distribute free clothing. An airline gave us thousands of blankets because they decided they're going to change their type of blanket. We spent over 2 months distributing those blankets up and down the country to the people sleeping on the streets, free of charge. At our own cost, own expense, that's voluntary work. Every week there are hundreds and hundreds of soup kitchens manned by our organisation, delivering not just food, but hot food.
So basically, you're running like other clubs, other charities across the country who are getting volunteers together, okay? And through providing a managed network, it gives the volunteers an opportunity to get together. If they're older people, gives them something to do. They're not sat at home. They're mixing and, you know, working with other people. You're doing fundraising events, dinners, and other, you know, I was going to say jumble sales, but tombola sales and so on. You raise some money, and then whether it's a school, it's a small voluntary group, or somebody else, you actually then help fund those, like other charities do, as a way of.
As Tony just put it so well, is it depends on local needs. So you get local people to coming together from all different professions, and they look at what's locally needed. There might be food collections, might be standing outside Asda's collecting, you know, tins to give to homeless charities, as you mentioned before. It might be, you know, raising money for computers. To be maybe even sent to Malawi, for example, where you had the cyclone. We're doing a fundraiser for that. So it's local as well as international. It has to be a balance. You know, as you said already, there's an international focus, but there's a local focus as well.
Okay, great. Well, look, guys, it's fantastic work you're doing, and it's a great initiative. But I'm interested, and it's something you said, Tony. You know, you guys come together from different communities, working together, and I understand you've created some sort of initiative in order to promote peace. Yes. And is this peace particularly between Pakistan and India, or is it a wider project?
Okay. The Rotary organisation started in 1905, but in 1932 there was conflicts between the United States and Canada. The reason being, in the United States they were no longer governed by the British, whereas Canada still were. So there was conflict. A group of our Rotarians got together and they formulated a peace park. So the governments of Canada and the United States donated the land. So it crosses the border. But once you enter any part of that land, you leave your own country. So if you enter from Canada, you're no longer in Canada. You're not in America, you're in a neutral zone called the Peace Park. That was back in 1932. That organisation has since reached out to many parts of the world. The Canadian chairman was in Pakistan in February 2015, and he wanted to see the Wagah border. He wasn't allowed. security reasons.
Oh,
they were
right. At
told.
that time, there
Tension,
was security issues.
tension,
I was going to say, I've been there, the border's
Yeah,
open.
yeah.
Why couldn't they see the border? Oh, but
that
there were
point-
security concerns at that time, right.
So he couldn't understand why is there conflict. He knew a very brief history that there was a line put between the two countries. One became Pakistan, one became India. But putting that line doesn't mean that you're no longer Punjabi
Of
or
course,
Sindhi.
Punjab was split into two, wasn't it? Yeah.
and Sindh.
And Sindh as well.
So
yes.
all along that line. So when he went back, he talked to his directors of the Waterton Glacier Peace Park, says, we should do something. And it took about 2 years, and we became the UK representatives of the organisation, and we're now pushing it from here. I've been to Pakistan, I've been to India, we've been to Canada. We launched the initiative in the House of Parliament on the 4th of March,
And what's the initiative called?
Indus Peace Park.
Okay.
And we believe, just like the Waterton Glacier Peace Park, there should be a park between the two where when you enter, you leave your own country, and to get back into your own country, you do the normal checks. But while you're in the middle, you're in an oasis of peace.
Okay, let me ask a few questions, because straight away to my mind, okay, it's a human nature. You think of the negatives first, yeah?
Yes.
You look at the positives after. I can see where the initiative is fantastic. But now let me look at some of the, and I'm sure they've solved them in Canada because over these years these happen. Now you're entering what's called the neutral zone, for a better word, yeah? I'm one of these Star Trek fans, so
Oh,
the neutral
good.
zone means a lot, yeah?
So is he.
So you're entering this neutral zone. How big are we talking? I mean, in square miles, or how big are we talking for this park to be?
That park will be determined by your government. Now, who's your government? Oh, your government.
Yeah.
Yours,
Pakistan
Pakistan,
and
you
India.
forget.
Yes.
And my government.
So how big's the Canada-America one? Give us an example.
27 hectares.
27 hectares. Okay, that's quite big.
It's huge.
That's quite huge. That's
We
quite
don't
big.
expect it to be that big.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's also a UNESCO natural site to be protected.
Okay. Well, hold that thought there, because my mind is still trying to work out the hectares to miles, and I'm sure our viewers are as well. So while we're going to break, quickly jump on your Google and do a calculation between hectares to miles, yeah, square miles, and see how big that is. So we're going on a short break, and when we come back, I'm really interested to hear a bit more about this peace park. So stay tuned. We should see you soon. Hello, welcome back, viewers, to the final part of the Tonight Show here today with Afzal Akram. And before the break, we were talking about a India-Pakistan peace initiative that Tony and I, Ayaza, are working on. And we were talking about a park, a neutral zone, as I called it. They're looking to try and get Pakistan and India to provide a bit of land on the border somewhere. So some of it's in Pakistan, some of it's India, to be declared a neutral zone. And their blueprint is something that happened in the early 18th, was it 19th century?
1930s, was it?
1930s.
1930s it happened, okay, where between America and Canada they created a park, and Tony said it was 27 hectares, and my mind didn't know what hectares were. So I worked it out during the break, and it's actually 270,000 square meters. Now that is big, okay? So Tony, I was asking the question, or Iyaz, if you want to answer this, I was asking, let's assume, I've waved my magic wand, the power I have, and Imran Khan and President Modi have agreed to give you this bit of land, okay, on both sides, yeah? What are you going to put inside it?
Well, just to kind of one step back, the park is also a living memorial to the million-plus people who died during partition, because there's no memorial to them. There's memorials there's massive statues for politicians and other members of the community, but nothing there for those people who didn't make it to one side or the other. So we're going to plant a tree as a living memorial for each person that passed away because of this
Is that a
tragedy.
million trees?
More than a million, yeah. And at the same time that we're a living memorial, we want to make it a wonder of the world. We want people to, when they visit India or Pakistan, to put that on their bucket list. We must go and visit the Indus Peace Park. We are working with the Aga Khan Institute to look at a peace garden with it that would be the centerpiece of the park. We're also making partnership with Kew Gardens and other horticultural specialists around the world to make sure that seeds and plants that were, no longer in that part of the world that used to be there are there, and make it into an ecological park that people want to go to. the other element is we half the land from India, half from Pakistan. There was a reason behind that because partition was all about this line going down the middle. We want to say that no, this is a space of humanity. There is no religion or politics involved there. Everything is to do with nature. Like we believe and like other religions believe, we end up in the same mitti or earth that we came from. So earth and Mother Earth, however you want to think about it, creation of the Almighty, we want that to be the centerpiece. So it's essential that, as you know, we get the governments involved, get them to donate the land, because it's this land that people are dying for.
Now, and that's great, and I'd like to be one of the first people there if you're going to make that happen. However, still coming back to the realities of the world, if I was to enter this park from Pakistan, what's to stop me entering India? I mean, are we creating more borders here, or
you're creating one big
work?
border? Okay, so when you leave either India or Pakistan, you're in the neutral zone. When you leave, you have the same protocols. Go through the checkpoint, show your passport. That's how you go back into that country.
Okay. So it'll be done. So there'll be managed exits and entrances into the park, which you will need ID to get in or out.
Yes.
Will we need a visa?
When you leave,
No.
When you leave your country, let's just say, for example, if you're leaving Pakistan, you need to take with you the documents you need when you're leaving Pakistan.
Right.
When
so that's an ID card or a passport, yeah?
And when you enter the country, you need the same documents that you need if you entered, let's say, Islamabad airport.
Okay. So the safeguards will be that I can't enter from India and exit in Pakistan, and vice versa, yeah?
You could enter from India, exit from Pakistan if you've got the correct paperwork.
So you
and
need
you'd
the
have to
visa
do
and
that
everything
before
else.
you entered, yeah?
Oh, yeah, before you entered.
Okay, that's fine. And who will police whatever happens inside?
What will happen is, first of all, the borders will be kind of going around the Peace Park. Yeah, so the borders would be there, but not in that area. That would be a Peace Park. Within the park, you have Indian Rotarians, Pakistani Rotarians, and Rotarians around the world who will upkeep the actual park, look after it, manage it, and it will be done by them.
Volunteers.
Okay.
Who will be vetted before they go
and
there.
I presume the volunteers will be drawn from India and Pakistan.
Absolutely, yes.
And from worldwide, whoever wants to come in and offer 6 months or 3 months or whatever they want to do.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Has such a project been put anywhere else apart from America and Canada, or?
There are several within countries where there's conflict. Just 3 days ago, we launched a project in Ukraine, in Kiev, where the land is there, but there's inter-community conflict. So we want to bring that park to be a conflict resolution area.
Okay.
So it's not just between countries, it's actually between cultures and people. And where we started the conversation, we're all God's children. We're all the same. Take away the colours, there's nothing different underneath.
Sure.
And this is what conflict resolution is about.
And how far have you guys got with India and Pakistan in trying to get this?
Well, we're hoping
project off the
in
ground?
the new year, from anywhere between February and April, we as a Rotary, our organisation is going to send a delegation to India and Pakistan. First to Pakistan, then to India. And we're going to hopefully meet the governor, the prime ministers themselves, if possible, but at least the governors, because they have a jurisdiction of that area. And we're going to promote what we're doing, get their endorsement as well, because nobody can really argue against the Peace Park, especially after what's happened in Punjab with the holy site for the Sikh community. That's going to open this month. So the next project we're hoping will be our project, because peace is a move-in, it's an influx.
I suppose as well as peace, this is another way of encouraging tourism to those parts of the world as well.
And if you get school children coming from one area and meeting in the Peace Park, and them having lifelong friendships
from the other side.
Yeah. At the same time, we've also visited Bradford University, which has a Rotary Peace Centre, postgraduate studies in conflict resolution. We're hoping to partner with them, and we've spoken to the department already, so that we can do postgraduate courses, so you can get graduates from both sides coming together and hopefully coming up with solutions, because you have one of the most intellectual and fast-moving populations on both sides, very clever people. And if they can work their mind to peace, they can make it happen. We just need to throw the ball to them, give them the space to do it.
Let me add one more thing. We're also realistic enough to know that border exists today and probably will exist for a few more years. But in the meantime, there's nothing to stop us creating the parks on either side before that barrier is
A
broken.
bit like the Channel Tunnel.
So these
Start
parks,
from the other side
Yeah,
and meet in the middle.
yeah.
Yeah.
But these parks will be the eighth wonder of the world because it's going to be for the future of our planet. It's going to be ecologically friendly. We're going to be setting up small research stations there. So that in the Pakistan side, they're doing research on the same sort of items that India is doing. There's no military involved. It's talking about water. It's talking about pollution-free air. So we're creating these almost in isolation, but we want these
So
guys
you're
to-
saying both sides need to technically agree in principle. You have two parks that open, one in Pakistan
Yes.
on the border, one in India on the border,
Yes.
and over time that border in the park disappears.
Correct.
Yeah? What happens if one side says yes and the other side says no? Is it a question of carrying on working with the no side until they say
You
yes?
never give
or
up
can
on-
you open one without the other?
Yes, yeah, we can, but it won't be
Many people have called us many different things.
lunatics, yeah.
What do they call Einstein? Crazy. We believe that we're visionaries. No one said for many years that the Berlin Wall would come down.
Of course.
It happened in my lifetime.
Yeah.
We've got more in common than most people around the world
You're,
have.
you're totally right. You're totally right. I mean, we came from the same place, you know.
We were the same place.
I always say we're like cousins.
Well, we
If
are,
you
yeah.
like.
Well, he's
That's interesting, because I
he-
did a DNA test, and I've got distant cousins who are Hindu, Sikh, Christian, and even Jewish.
Of course.
Now,
and he made me do the
I
test.
made him do the test, and he's got
And-
similar.
My forefathers are from Sialkot.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So it's a win situation for everybody. To start with, for the governments, let's have an eco park where there's research which will benefit not only their own environment, but something for the world environment. Same for India. And we can get these people working together just to create enough clean water for their own countries, for our own people. Forget about everybody else. They're working together. Why work in isolation? And this is where the cooperation starts. We believe wholeheartedly that one day there will be no barrier. But in the meantime, we will make such an institutional, fabulous world
Yeah.
wonder because there are too many people wanting this and very few not wanting it. People who want peace are willing to fund what we are doing.
And also, we launched the project in Parliament because Parliament was where they drew the line up. We could have done it in Canada, we could have done it in any other country.
Yeah.
And we had loads of people, British, Asians, coming together, some of the military people we brought together, and people who had parents who went to one side or the other because of partition. So we're very determined to do that, and we want people-to-people contact, because politicians, as you know, politicians really well, politicians have sometimes their own agenda, but people-to-people, we've got the same needs. You know, we are the same people. And we chose Indus Peace Park, the name Indus, because of Indus civilization. A lot of the sites are in Pakistan, funny enough, as well as India, and that civilization was supposed to be well ahead of its time, at the same time as the Egyptian civilization. We don't hear too much about that. The language hasn't been deciphered either, but we thought we'd land on common ground. Everything didn't start 47. You know, we had so much in common beforehand.
Sure. And how long has it been since you kicked off this initiative?
We started talking about it in 2015, but we actually launched the initiative this year,
Okay.
officially worldwide in the British Parliament. March the 4th
Great.
it was.
And so next steps is, like you say, a delegation next year to India and Pakistan to try and get the governments
Absolutely.
to buy in on this.
Yes.
I presume you're working with local organisations, including Rotarians in both countries
Yes.
as well.
And we work with everyone. You know, you're referring to other organisations
We
like
were
the Lions,
planning-
anyone that wants to work with us.
We plan to be at a Rotary convention in Faisalabad.
Yes.
Regrettably, my visa didn't come through in time. So then we decided to go in December. The delegation's ready from America, the Canada, and the United Kingdom. And then regrettably,
The Kashmir thing.
the Kashmir incident
I
happened.
mean, talking about Kashmir and the incidents, and tensions are very high
Yes,
at
yes.
the moment,
Yes.
to where they were maybe 2 years ago and
Absolutely,
so on. Do you think that will have an impact, as in a positive impact or a negative impact?
The more negative impact we have, the more requirement there is for us to ramp
More
up what we're doing.
More determined.
Now, what happens with the negativity? Basically, lives are lost. What is our organisation's focus? To save lives.
I mean, our organisation was instrumental in forming the UN. In this peace part, we're trying to be instrumental in getting both countries together.
I mean, based on what you're saying, to me, it would be the natural home would be on the line of control between the two Kashmirs, because that is the flashpoint between the two countries. But at the same time, that is the most dangerous bit,
Yes.
and therefore people going into that zone may not be in a safe environment. So
No.
maybe the park needs to be across somewhere else on the
It's
border.
going to be down below.
For it to be
yeah,
success,
yeah,
for it to be a success,
Yes.
and then hopefully maybe draw its way up to the
Absolutely.
Kashmir.
It's
Yes.
very
issue as
simple.
well.
Yes.
The Kartarpur corridor is opening. Nothing's going to stop that now.
Sure.
So that's set a precedent. If we can set a precedent based around ecology, saving our planet, that's a start here. That will spread, we believe, like wildfire. Why? Because who wants to kill anybody, really? Nobody, really.
And it's fear-mongering and people dividing us. Look how we're sitting down here, and in the UK, how much solidarity there is between the communities. There may be flashbacks when certain things happen abroad, but in essence, as long as you have stability, rule of law, and everyone's treated equally, then you have that capacity. And we're trying to, in a sense, give something back to our motherland.
Yas, Tony, thank you very much for coming in. When you're having a good conversation, time does fly by. Time has flown. Viewers, we're coming to the end of the show, and I want to thank Tony and Yas for sharing their peace initiative with us and their dream of creating this park between India and Pakistan, which, like a seed, it could be something that grows, and this park becomes bigger and bigger, and maybe even one day across the whole border, and brings the two countries more towards peace than the current climate of fear and antagonism between each other. But I hope you enjoyed this week's Tonight Show with Afzal Akram. I hope you have a fantastic week ahead. And like I said, don't forget to register for your vote as well. Yes, general elections very important. And I will ask you again next week, same time, Tuesday, 8 p.m. for the Tonight Show with Afzal Akram. Thank you. God bless.